Some people walk into a room and nothing changes. Others arrive, and even without a word, the atmosphere feels different. Their energy felt to the cell level, and their presence can't be ignored by those around them. If you possess the signs that we will explain in this video, you are the second kind. People notice you before you introduce yourself. Some feel nervous, some act too friendly, some avoid you without knowing why. When your aura carries strength, calm, and something hard to define, it makes others react. Not because you are trying to impress them, but because they are not used to being in the presence of someone who doesn't hide who they are. Today we're going to explain the real signs that your energy has a silent effect on everyone around you, even if you don't realize it. 1. People get nervous before you even speak. There are moments when you step into a space and people suddenly straighten their backs, fidget with their hands, or look down. Before you've even opened your mouth, the atmosphere around you thickens. You feel it even if no one says it, a nervous shift hanging in the air. This happens because your aura reaches into the space before your voice ever does. Those who are sensitive enough feel it immediately. It's an invisible handshake that reveals your inner strength, confidence, and clarity, all without the need for introductions. Most people aren't used to encountering energy that demands presence without demanding attention. It confuses them. They instinctively adjust their behavior without knowing why, because something about you disrupts the usual unconscious dynamics. When your presence is this strong, it forces people to confront themselves, their insecurities, their masks, their hidden worries, and often that confrontation creates nervousness long before a single word is spoken. 2. Weak minds avoid eye contact with you. When you meet someone's gaze, there are those who simply cannot hold it. They glance away quickly, pretend to be distracted, or look through you without truly seeing you. It's not shyness. It's discomfort, an instinctive retreat from energy they don't know how to withstand. Strong auras expose weakness by contrast. It's not cruelty or superiority. It's simply the natural result of intensity meeting fragility. The eyes reveal more than words ever could, and when someone cannot meet yours, it's because they feel the weight of what stands behind them. Your gaze isn't aggressive, nor is it invasive. It's steady, real, and alive. And for many, that feels like too much. People who live in emotional armor cannot endure real presence for long without feeling exposed. When they look away, it's not rejection of you, it's protection of themselves. Their nervous system, their self-image, their illusions, all scramble to retreat from the confrontation they didn't expect. 3. You walk into a room and conversations shift instantly. Without trying, without even listening, you notice it. Conversations change the moment you enter. Laughter drops a few notches. Topics switch. People clear their throats, adjust their posture, and recalibrate their words in real time. You don't need to command attention for this to happen. Your aura acts as a silent amplifier of authenticity. It sharpens the air, pressing people to either be more real or hide more clumsily. Neither option leaves the original atmosphere intact. Some notice this consciously and attempt to reset the mood. Others feel it subconsciously, sensing that the energy in the room no longer supports casual avoidance or false connection. You shift the emotional architecture of a space simply by stepping into it. 4. People assume you're judging them, even when you're silent. You can be sitting quietly, fully absorbed in your own thoughts, and yet someone across the room becomes uneasy. They fidget, explain themselves unnecessarily, or act defensive, as if your silence is speaking louder than conversation. Strong auras act like mirrors. They don't project judgment. They simply reflect whatever the other person brings. And for people carrying insecurity, guilt, or unresolved emotions, standing in front of such a mirror feels like judgment, even when none is intended. You are not criticizing anyone silently, but your presence does something they rarely experience. It forces them to face the parts of themselves they usually distract away from. Over time, you realize that people's discomfort says more about their inner battles than it ever does about your behavior. You are not harsh, you are honest, and not everyone wants to meet honesty without armor. 5. You receive fake smiles, and even faker compliments. There's a certain smile people give when they're not relaxed but trying to hide their unease. You recognize it because it's tight around the eyes, forced at the edges, and too quick to retreat. Along with it often come compliments that feel hollow, exaggerated, or oddly timed. When your energy unsettles people, many react with performative kindness. They don't know how to engage authentically, so they reach for the nearest socially acceptable behavior. Compliments become a shield rather than a celebration. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's pure instinct, an unconscious attempt to smooth over their own anxiety by overcompensating. But the result is the same. You sense the gap between what they say and what they feel. 6. Authority figures either challenge you or fear you. You may have noticed that bosses, teachers, or leaders either feel drawn to confront you or they keep their distance. There's rarely a neutral reaction. Some feel the need to assert control, while others instinctively defer, even when you haven't asked for anything. True power unsettles artificial authority. When your energy radiates inner strength, it subtly undermines structures built on fear, hierarchy, or insecurity. Those whose authority is rooted in ego feel threatened, even if you remain silent and respectful. You're not challenging anyone consciously, but your presence questions the legitimacy of control systems that rely on others' compliance. Simply existing outside of their power dynamics makes you appear dangerous. 7. You sense resentment from people who've barely met you. You meet someone for the first time, and even though you have been kind and respectful, there's a tension you can feel. They act polite, but there's a sharpness under their words, a tightness behind their laughter. It's the kind of resentment that doesn't need a reason because it never started with you. When your aura is powerful, it can stir something uncomfortable in others. It's not about jealousy in the simple sense. It's deeper. It's the quiet anger some people feel when they come face to face with someone who reminds them of their own forgotten strength. You don't provoke it, you just exist, and that alone feels heavy for them. This resentment is rarely expressed openly. Most of the time it stays under the surface, showing up in passive comments, cool behavior, or unnecessary competition. You notice it not because you're looking for conflict, but because your energy always tells you when something doesn't sit right. 8. You're often misunderstood as cold, arrogant, or intimidating. You try to be neutral, careful with your words, and yet you often find yourself misunderstood. People might call you distant, arrogant, or even unfriendly, all without really knowing you. It feels unfair, but it happens more than once. This happens because strength without explanation makes people uncomfortable. They fill in the blanks with their own fears. They assume that if you are not overly warm, you must be cold. If you are not constantly seeking approval, you must be arrogant. If you do not make yourself smaller to make others comfortable, you must be intimidating. You are not any of these things at your core. What you are is self-contained. You do not need to broadcast your emotions to feel them. You do not need to prove your kindness to be kind. You simply exist without performing, and that alone unsettles those who expect constant reassurance from the people around them. 9. People constantly test you until they quietly submit. At first, new people might tease you, challenge your ideas, or push small boundaries almost as if they are measuring you. Some do it playfully, others do it with hidden motives. Either way, you notice the pattern. People test you before they trust you. This testing is not always conscious, it's instinct. When people sense a strong presence they can't immediately place, their survival mind kicks in. They try to find out if you are a threat, a leader, a rival, or someone safe to ignore. They look for weaknesses, but usually they find none. Once they realize that you are not moved easily, that you won't shrink to fit or react on command, the testing ends. They either accept your presence or quietly move away, understanding that you are not someone to manipulate or control. 10. You don't need to raise your voice, your silence hits harder. When conflict arises, some people get louder. Some throw words like weapons, but you have learned that silence often speaks louder than anything else. You do not raise your voice because you don't need to. The weight of your quietness says everything. Silence, when it comes from real power, feels heavier than anger. It creates a space where others are left alone with their own words, their own mistakes, their own emotions. Without defense, without distraction, they hear themselves more clearly. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to face. You are not silent out of weakness. You are silent because you know that not every battle deserves your energy. You understand that true influence comes not from noise, but from presence. 11. You're accused of thinking you're better without saying a word. There will be moments when people accuse you of arrogance or superiority, even when you have done nothing to suggest it. You may have spoken little, offered no judgment, and shown no intention of comparison. Yet still the accusation comes. This reaction isn't about your attitude. It's about their insecurity. When someone who doubts themselves meets someone who is sure of who they are, it can feel like an attack. even when it isn't. They interpret your quiet self-acceptance as arrogance because it highlights the areas where they feel less than. You don't need to explain yourself when this happens. Arguing won't change their feelings. They aren't reacting to you. They're reacting to the mirror you unknowingly held up to their own fears. 12. Sensitive people feel drained after being around you. Even when you are kind, even when you are soft-spoken, certain people seem exhausted after spending time near you. It isn't because you are harsh or negative, it's because your energy strips away their emotional masks. Strong auras don't allow for much pretending. They call people into honesty, sometimes without a word. Sensitive people, especially those who are used to hiding parts of themselves, can find this exhausting. They may not even realize why they feel so tired. You are not stealing energy. You are holding a vibration that others must either match or leave behind. And for those not ready to meet it, the encounter feels like running uphill against an invisible force. 13. You rarely seek validation, which makes you even more dangerous. There is a quiet strength in people who don't constantly ask for approval. You are one of them. You move through life anchored in something deeper than public opinion. You don't need applause to know your worth, and you don't collapse when it's absent. This independence unsettles many. In a world where attention is currency, someone who doesn't trade in it stands out and scares those who rely on it. Your ability to validate yourself removes the invisible strings most people are used to pulling. It's not that you reject connection. You appreciate real acknowledgement, but your survival doesn't depend on it. You can walk away from shallow praise without a second thought, and that makes you harder to influence, manipulate, or control. If you have made it this far, let us know what you think in the comments section below. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Thanks for watching.